In this episode, I continue to read chapters from my new book, The Trust Premium. This is the first part of Chapter 5, which is a bit long for just one episode. Overall, the chapter discusses how trust converts into Trust Premium and Trust Preference. That transformation happens differently in different industries and for different customers. In this first part of Chapter 5, I will start by defining the three terms: Trust Preference, Trust Premium, and No Trust Discount. So, let's start right after this. Welcome to The Trust Show. I'm Yoram Solomon, your host, the author of the Book of Trust, and facilitator of the Trust Habits Workshop. My mission is simple. I want to help you form habits that build your trustworthiness, because the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? Chapter 5: Trust Preference and Trust Premium. In their B2B Superpowers Index 2021 through 2024, marketing agency Dentsu reported a watershed moment for B2B. For the first time, personal decision drivers, such as feeling safe signing a contract, aligning with personal values or ethics, and teaching me new skills or knowledge, outweighed professional decision drivers such as competitive pricing, products or services that just work, variety, and choice in a 52% to 48% ratio. This was up from 35% personal and 65% professional in 2021. The trend was clear over the past 4 years, and probably even more than that. Personal factors played a continuously and consistently increasing role in purchase decisions. Doesn't that have the word trust plastered all over? Let me remind you what you read at the beginning of this book. In 2018, I conducted a survey asking what is the most important quality for participants in other people. While trustworthiness was the most important quality for 61.2% of participants on average across 6 types of relationships, it was the highest when I asked about salespeople or service provider or other professionals trying to sell them something. That came at 77.4%. I followed up with another survey suggested that 2 contractors bid on a $10,000 home remodeling project and that one appeared trustworthy while the other was not. I found 2 things. Customers were choosing trustworthy salespersons over other salespeople almost 100% of the time when the prices were the same, and they were even willing to pay a premium. In fact, I calculated that on a weighted average, that they were willing to pay a 29.6% higher price to the trustworthy salesperson before they started seriously considering, not yet selecting, the other. In 2018, I left this research at that point, but in 2023, I decided to go deeper after that pivotal lunch with Mark Hunter. Research has to start with the theoretical framework, so here is mine. The first thing was to define the terms trust preference and trust premium, and in the process, I defined one more term, no trust discount. Trust preference. With everything else equal, including price, what is the probability that the customer will choose the trustworthy provider over one they don't know? Trust premium. With everything else equal, excluding price, how much more is the customer willing to pay the trustworthy provider before switching to one they don't know? No trust discount. With everything else equal, excluding price, how much will a provider have to discount their price before the customer switches to them from a provider they trust? These terms apply to both situations of initial sales and existing customer retention. They apply when you're bidding against another salesperson to get the business initially, but also when trying to take a customer away from a competitor or prevent a competitor from taking away one of your customers. Generally, it is a good practice never to assume that your customers will remain your customers forever, no matter what you or your competitors do. It's best always to ensure you do what it takes to keep your customer. Trust, price, and preference. Stating that the trust preference in a certain situation is 98% and the trust premium is 30% will only partially represent the relationship between the three variables: trust, premium, and preference. Here is a more complete description of the relationship between them. The following diagrams describe how the trust preference and trust premium are affected by different levels of trust. The assumption I was making here is that everything else is equal. There is no difference in the value of the products or services offered by the two salespeople, nor is there any difference in the expected customer service, payment terms, or anything else. Every little difference would mean either a difference in price or in value. Figure 13 represents a scenario in which there is no difference in the customer's level of trust in the two salespeople. The level of trust the customer has in salesperson A is the same as the level of trust they have in salesperson B. As such, you can see that it is hard to see who will they choose if the price is the same, but it's enough that the price that salesperson A is asking for is $1 or even a cent lower, and the customer would choose A with 100% preference. It wouldn't make sense to call this trust preference because there is no difference in the level of trust that the customer has between the two salespeople. However, this changes when the customer trusts one salesperson more than the other, even slightly. Figure 14 represents this scenario. Here, the trust level in salesperson A is greater than that in salesperson B. As long as salesperson A asks for a price or fees that is not greater than those asked by salesperson B, then A will get the business with close to 100% trust preference. However, even when A increases the price, they still get the business, although with a lower trust preference. At some point, the trust preference reaches the 50% preference line. That's when the customer will consider buying from salesperson B. As A continues to increase the price, the customer's preference toward A drops below 50%, and there is a higher probability they will buy from salesperson B and not A. The triangular area on the right of the purchase preference line above the price line and under the diagonal line is the trust preference area. Every price that A asks for in that area represents a probability higher than 50% that the customer will choose them. But wait, it gets even better or worse depending on which salesperson you are. If you are salesperson B, then the chart for you looks like in figure 15. As long as your price is not lower than the price asked by salesperson A, the probability that the customer will choose you is 0% or very close to it. As you start discounting your price compared to A, the likelihood that the customer will buy from you increases. At a certain discount level, you will be able to reach the point where the customer will consider buying from you because you are asking for a low enough price to compensate for their lower trust in you. I call this point, and generally the area between the graph and the axis, the no trust discount. This is the discount you must offer to get the business when the customer trusts your competitor more than you. The no trust discount is derived from the trust premium and can be calculated based on it. As a reminder of the relationship between them, when you have two salespeople and you trust A and not B, A's trust premium is the premium percentage that the customer is willing to pay A above what B is asking for before they consider the 50% mark buying from B, and the no trust discount is the discount that B has to offer the customer below the price that A is asking for before they will consider the 50% mark buying from B. To calculate the no trust discount from the trust premium, use the following formula. The no trust discount equals 1 minus 1 divided by 1 plus trust premium. For example, if the trust premium is 29.6%, as I found in my very preliminary survey in 2018, then the customer is willing to pay a 29.6% higher price than what B is asking for before they will consider buying from B. Using that number in the formula will give you the no trust discount as follows. The no trust discount equals 1 minus 1 divided by 1 plus 0.296, and it equals 0.228. In other words, the customer will consider buying from B when B offers a 22.8% discount over the price that A asks for. No trust is not distrust. This would be a great time to state that I look at the trust continuum as a range with trust on one side, no trust in the middle, and distrust on the other. In my research, I measured the trust preference and trust premium and calculated the no trust discount based on the difference between trusting salesperson A and not trusting salesperson B. When I say not trusting, I mean that the customer doesn't feel trust towards salesperson B, but they don't feel active distrust. In other words, they don't have a reason not to trust salesperson B. They just don't have a reason to trust them. Why is this important? If the customer has a reason to actively distrust salesperson B, they will likely not buy from them at any price or discount. If they have a reason to believe that salesperson B will trick them, cheat them, or otherwise intentionally not deliver the value they promise for the price they are asking for, they will not buy from them, period. If my basis for calculating the trust premium was the difference between the trust the customer has in a trustworthy salesperson and the active distrust they have in the other, it would be skewed, and the trust preference and the trust premium would be inflated, if not infinite. Imagine if your basis for determining which contractor to use for your home remodeling project is references from other people. I will discuss that in greater detail in the second part of this book. Now, imagine that a friend you trust tells you that contractor A is reliable, fast, delivers what he promises, and is generally trustworthy. Imagine another friend you trust telling you to stay away from contractor B like the plague. He doesn't deliver high quality, he uses cheap materials, doesn't meet schedules, and gives you reasons to distrust them. Both the trust preference and trust premium might be infinite, as there is absolutely no way you will hire contractor B regardless of how much you trust contractor A. In my research, I didn't use someone you know you should not trust as the reference salesperson B. Instead, I use someone you don't know as salesperson B. You don't have any reason to trust them, at least not yet, but you don't have any reason to actively distrust them either. For example, in one of the survey questions for financial advisors, I described A as someone who was recommended to me by someone I know and trust, while B was not. In parentheses, although nobody said anything bad about them. I need to clarify something. While this book strongly emphasizes the significant value of trust, demonstrating that customers are indeed willing to pay a premium for it, I must also acknowledge that trust is not the only factor customers value or are willing to pay for. Remember that in my definitions of trust preference and trust premium, I use the words everything else is the same. Typically, not everything is the same. Even if the price is the same, the value delivered by the different products, services, or companies could be different. In some cases, the value can be simply higher or lower. For example, 2 light bulbs could be the same, but one generates a little more light than the other. For most people, generating more light means that it's better. In other cases, the differences might depend on what's important to the customer. Product or service A may be better in one aspect but worse in another. Now it comes down to the customer to determine what's more important and how different those products are. Light bulb A might generate 10% less light but consume 25% less energy than light bulb B. To the more energy-conscious customer, light bulb A is better. However, light bulb B is better for customers who care more about light than energy saving. Non-financial value may include things such as, this is not a complete list, performance, features, aesthetics, brand, environmental friendliness, capacity, reliability, availability, ease of use, customer service. I'm sure you can think of more, and I'm sure that some of those values components are not applicable in some cases. Remember that different customers may prioritize different value characteristics differently than others. Trust is not a one-size-fits-all concept. It is deeply influenced by both personal and industry context. The degree to which someone trusts a provider and the premium they're willing to pay for that trust varies based on individual preferences, experiences, expectations, and overall circumstances and context. Similarly, the dynamics of trust differ across industries, shaped by factors such as commoditization, the stakes of decision-making, and the visibility of outcomes. Figure 17 illustrates how personal and industry-specific factors moderate how a salesperson's behavior is translated into trust and how trust is converted into trust preference and trust premium. On the left side are the components of my relative trust model. In part 2 of the book, I will elaborate on the components of this model, but for now, we will settle for accepting that these components cause people to determine whether they can trust you or, more accurately, how much they can trust you. The model applies to every relationship. The components may have different weights and different interpretations for different relationships and even for different industries. The behaviors the salesperson exhibits, moderated by personal factors and industry and other context, which are different for different industries and people and are covered later in this chapter, affect the customer's level of trust in the salesperson. Trustfulness is one example of a personal factor, which I will repeat later. According to my 8th law of trust, further explained in part 2, the level of trust your customer has in you is the product of your trustworthiness and their trustfulness. Trustfulness is their willingness to trust people in general, and your kind can mean many things. It can mean men, salespeople, left-handed people, or any other group that generalizes itself in the customer's mind in particular. We are all the sum of our experiences. Due to our experiences, some of us have difficulty trusting people in general. Due to our life experiences, some of us have a hard time trusting salespeople in particular. Regardless, the personal factor, which varies from one person to another, would affect the translation of your trustworthiness into the level of trust the customer is willing to extend to you. Based on your behaviors according to the relative trust model and the customer's personal context, they will determine whether they can trust you or not, or even actively distrust you. Then, that trust Again, moderated by personal factors and industry context, will translate into the trust preference and trust premium they're willing to grant you. One example of an industry context factor is the severity of the consequences of choosing someone they can't trust and being let down by them. Think again about the consequences of hiring the wrong studio photographer to take a new set of headshots and being let down by them versus hiring the wrong wedding photographer to take wedding photos and being let down by them. Obviously, the latter will command a significantly higher trust premium than the former. Before I discuss my relative trust model in part 2, I will state that the same behavior that would cause one customer to trust you could cause another customer to distrust you. I'll return to that in part 2. This would be a great point to break this chapter before it gets too long. I defined the three terms: trust preference, trust premium, and no trust discount. In the next episode, I will continue reading chapter 5 and talk about the industry characteristics that make the trust preference, trust premium, and no trust discount different in different industries. But that's for next week. That's it for today. I hope this made you think a little differently about trust and trust premium. And remember, people buy from people they trust and are even willing to pay a premium when they buy from someone they trust. May trust be with you. This was The Trust Show. What would you like to know about trust and trustworthiness? Let me know and I'll answer it in a future episode. I would love to hear from you. Email me at yoram@thetrustshow.com. If you like this episode, subscribe to the show so you will automatically get notified when I release a new episode. Rate it. Write a review for this podcast because those ratings help not only you, but also others looking for podcasts just like this. If you're looking for more resources to learn about how to build trust, be trusted, or know who to trust, look up my workshops, online courses, books, or go to my website, trusthabits.com. And remember that the answer to these two questions will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? And can you trust me? Thank you for listening or watching The Trust Show.